This is RJ's Still Running podcast. I'm RJ, and I'm still running at 70 years old. Let's talk about Boston. The race is over, but I wanted to go back to before the race and tell you how I prepared. Boston isn't just a race you run, it's a race you manage because it's so hilly. Me, living in Orlando, Florida, flat as a pancake, meant I had to find any hills I could run on. Which actually, I was surprised to find that some hills were close by. Not big hills, but they were hills nevertheless. I want to walk through exactly what my training cycle looked like. Who knows, maybe this will help you run Boston next year. My training was intentionally structured and built specifically for Boston and went for 20 weeks. I planned everything around that particular race and how exactly I would run it. My goal was to be under 4 hours, and to do it I had to build a complete system around pacing, hills, endurance, and recovery. My foundation was all about Zone 2 running and aerobic control. Most of my runs were done at a controlled Zone 2 heart rate, which for me is about 115 to 120 beats per minute. I'm going to get into this in another video down the road, but I'm going to tell you exactly how I set up my Garmin watch, so stay tuned for that video when it comes up. Remember, I'm 70 years old and also have a really low heart rate to begin with. My resting heart rate is around 38 to 40 beats per minute, and my max heart rate is around 160 to 170, more like 161. My idea was to build endurance without accumulating fatigue over the 20 weeks. I didn't want to burn myself out, so I ran every other day and alternated runs every other weekend with long but not super long runs the other weekends. As you can see from the chart that's on the screen now, you'll see that, for example, I'll run 10 miles and then 14, then I'll go back to 12 and then up to 16 and so on. Running hills meant you go in and out of Zone 2 based on effort. The key is to be able to get back to Zone 2 after your heart rate naturally rises a bit on hills. That means pulling back and running on effort, not a set heart rate. That was a difference for me, because what I did in normal running is I would run on heart rate. I would try to stick to 114 beats per minute or something like that. But when you're running for Boston, you have to learn to run on effort. The big mistake most people make at Boston is going too fast on the 4-mile downhill at the start and burning up the quads. So I spent a lot of time increasing cadence and shortening my stride on downhills so I had the strength for the Newton Hills at mile 16. I certainly didn't want to blow myself up early, so I built that discipline first and also ran a lot of my training runs at race pace. My target pace is around 5:35 to 5:40 per kilometer. That's about 9:09 minute per mile pace for a 4-hour marathon. I had to get used to that effort. Not all my runs were at race pace, but I did enough to get the feeling for what I had to do. I think Boston has to be run on effort, not pace, although watching my average pace was critical, so I knew I could meet my goal. I'll go into my Garmin watch setup in another video so you can see exactly what my screen looks like and why I choose these parameters. They're specific to making sure that you run the best race you can do at exactly the right pace that you want for the given race. I've spent hours studying this course through YouTube videos, watching how the race unfolds and where people succeed and fall apart. Here's a simple way to think about Boston. The first 4 miles are a steep downhill that can feel easy, but that's where people make their biggest mistake. The runners are packed together, the energy's high, and it's really easy to get pulled into running faster. You feel great, you're flying down the hill, and it doesn't feel like work, but that's exactly how people burn their legs early and pay for it later. From 4 miles to about mile 16, it's mostly rolling and flat, where they say you can settle into a rhythm. In my next video, when I go through the actual race, I'll tell you about my experience, and it's not that. Mile 16 through 20 are the Newton Hills, 4 climbs in a row, ending with Heartbreak Hill. I found the first hill to be the worst. It's long, and it just goes up and up and up, and you don't feel like you're ever going to get to the top. Heartbreak Hill was tough, but it was that first hill that caught me off guard. More on this in my race video too. And after that, it's essentially downhill into Boston for the final 10K. That's where you want to make the time. That is the place where you will make or break this race. So here's the strategy. Hold back to race pace on the downhills or slightly faster. Don't bank time, it's not worth it. Run the uphills based on effort and don't worry about time lost. For me, that's around 6 minutes per kilometer pace. I'm not trying to hold 540 going uphill. And then on the flats and after Heartbreak Hill, settle back into race pace rhythm. We're going to get into the details on that in a later video, but cadence and stride length are key. My cadence is around 180 steps per minute, but I tend to drift lower and have to be attentive to keeping cadence because if I lose cadence and keep the same stride length, my pace suffers. My stride is about 1 meter long. More on this in a later video. Building a strong aerobic base is a foundation. I'm a true believer in Zone 2 running. We'll talk about that in a later video too. Zone 2 is great, but there must be interval, tempo, and stride workouts. Another huge factor is weight. I tracked my weight and was religious about my diet. At the light of the end of the tunnel marathon in June of 2026, where I qualified, I weighed 167 pounds. At the Marine Corps Marathon in October of 2026, I was around the same weight, 165 pounds. And in both of those races, I was carrying extra weight. I used a Camelback in June and a Solomon hydration vest at the Marine Corps Marathon, which added about 2 pounds. At Boston, I weighed 155 pounds with no hydration pack. That's huge. I'm lighter and running unencumbered. While that can help efficiency, it also introduced the risk of underfueling. I needed to get to the start line fueled and ready, which brings me to race week, nutrition. I needed to make sure my glycogen reserves were full. I targeted around 2,000 calories per day with a strong emphasis on carbohydrates. I needed roughly 200 to 250 grams of carbs per day to restore and maintain glycogen. As I moved into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that shifted into a true carb load. That means pushing up into the 300 to 400 gram range. How is it possible to take in that many carbs and not feel stuffed and bloated? I focused on high efficiency carbs, things like rice, pasta, bagels with honey, rice cakes, and also Morton drink mixes. Those Morton drink mixes are key tools because they allowed me to add 80 grams of carb without feeling full. And no, Morton isn't a sponsor of mine, but their drink mix is gold that allowed me to hit my carb goal. Instead of forcing food, I can use a combination of meals and targeted carb drinks to hit the numbers. Those little rice bowls that you buy off the shelf and Mike for 90 seconds are the best along with bagels and honey. I call it high octane fuel because you get the highest carbs in the lowest calories. I also reduced fiber to almost zero. I just didn't want digestion problems before or during the race. But you can't control the weather, and Boston weather is unpredictable. I was watching the forecasts, and one day it rains, the next day it's sunny, then windy, then it's not, and now I was seeing gusts of up to 45 miles per hour. So dress for the worst and then throw off the layers. For this race to go well, I needed temperatures in the 50s and at worst no higher than the mid-60s. Anything warmer than that changed the equation and makes pacing much more difficult. If temperatures climb too high, I have to accept that 4 hours might not happen. Logistically, I'm in Wave 5, Corral 7, with an 11:01 start time. That lines up pretty well with how I've been training, since a lot of my weekend runs have been late morning or around midday. As a side note, let me tell you the quality of runners is nothing like your local 5K. Everyone is fit and trim and can run circles around me. Wave 5 is the second last wave, and they seed you according to your time, so most people are way ahead of me. But then I'm 70, so you got to give me a little grace. My goal was simple. By race morning, I wanted to feel light. I didn't want to feel empty, but I wanted to feel fueled, but not full. I was prepared. I had the training. The pacing was clear, and my nutrition plan was dialed in. All I had to do was execute the race. My next video will be the race, where I break down how everything actually played out. But that's where I stood heading into Boston. Follow me as I take you on a journey to get fit. I'm signed up for the Chicago Marathon on October 11th and will be putting out at least a video a week as I go through my 20-week training starting on May 25th. I think if you follow me and want to be a better runner, I can show you how to get there. That includes everything from shoes, diet, performance, and whatever else it takes to run a marathon. See you in the next video.